Yeah, we talked about it, we blocked it, and we went through it, and we did it, and the director said, I'd like to get it one take if we can, because we got to re-squib, everybody change their shirts, and so forth. So they had different ones of us running out of the brush, and Chris, he had these big old Walker Colts he'd pull out and go, boom, boom, boom. So we did it, cut, and Chris said, what does it look like? And in his voice, and the director said, Chris, looking through the camera, it looks like you're shooting in the air and not at the... He said, well, I don't know what the hell that matters. I was hitting everything I was shooting at. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to kind of wrap my mind around 77. When you look like you're 57.
Oh man, you're too good.
No, that's no shit.
Hold that thought and wait till we record.
All right. Yeah. I might have to look at your teeth like an old horse. I don't.
Hi, I'm Rob Word. Welcome to A Word on Westerns, and I've got a special treat today because I have a special friend. He's a man that loves Westerns. You'll recognize his voice, you'll recognize his face, and his mustache. I'm talking about my saddle pal, RW Hampton. RW, welcome to the motel room where we are in Oklahoma City.
Morning, Rob.
How are you doing, pal?
I'm doing good, and I just don't know any other place I'd rather be than right here with you on Word on Western.
Well, it's a Sunday morning, and that's when we post
That's what, you betcha. You betcha.
So you're a fan of the show?
Absolutely. You and I have known each other for a long time, but Word on Westerns is become a secret addiction to me.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I'll see what you posted, and I'll watch it, and then I'll watch another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then I'll look at my watch, and I go, oh my goodness, where did the day go?
Well, that's nice to hear.
It's true. Yeah, beautiful.
Well, what it is it's not like a normal talk show, just like we're having a conversation here, just some pals talking about Western movies, and that's what the shows are.
You bet.
How did you become the icon that you are in terms of your love of Western movies? Were you like me, a kid growing up watching all the TV shows?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up on Western movies, but as a kid, the 60s TV shows, and there are too many you and I could fill up the time going back and forth mentioning titles, but those wonderful old Westerns. And then as Saturday morning growing up, I grew up a Texas town kid, but also they ran Roy and Dale's TV show as reruns. Mm-hmm. I didn't know they were reruns.
No, heck no.
I didn't care, but I watched those, and I've always lived with I've always aspired to the willful suspension of disbelief and just let it go. And I love those Westerns,
Me too.
Yeah.
There's something about them, and I think our generation has fallen in love with not just the Westerns themselves, but the meaning and the morals
Absolutely.
that we saw back then,
bet.
which it's hard to find those today.
Well, it really is. And, raising kids on a ranch and having first VHS and DVDs, I got to raise my kids on the same things that I did. And I realize now, looking back, how fortunate I was to be able to say, kids, sit down here. I want to show you this because I saw this when I was your age, And we'd watch Joel McRae and Ride the High Country or Stars in My Crown or something like that.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Nobody talks much about that one. That was Jacques Tourneau.
Yes.
Who was, and Joel is a preacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my boys going, wow, Dad, that was good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so they still work today. They really do.
Of course.
They really do.
And what's nice today is, and I've said this before, is that with the proliferation of all of these different channels out there now, they're running Westerns because they need product, and they're finding a younger audience too.
Yeah, the other day it was kind of a thing. I was I was kind of laid up for a couple of days with an old injury on my leg, and my wife showed me how to work the remote, and I found one of those platforms, and I found the Autry movies that had been restored.
Yes. Oh,
They're
yeah.
gorgeous.
FMC, I think, is
Yeah.
that channel.
Yeah.
They only run commercials like every 4 minutes.
Oh my goodness. Oh, we're fixing to have, yeah, exactly. A big gunfight and you run a commercial.
Well,
you know?
and I record them
Yeah.
and then whiz through the commercials.
Yeah.
But even that sometimes is like, well, it's almost not worth it. But the beautiful restorations that we see today.
You know, and one too, I know you know about that my 23-year-old son, I didn't know about it. My 23-year-old son said, Dad, you got to see this. We sat down and watched The Big Trail.
Oh,
Restored.
the widescreen.
Yes.
Man, is that good, too.
And you know, we watched it, I think we watched it twice. We watched it to watch the story, but then we went back and realized how far in the distance those wagons were. How did they signal each other to start, you know? Megaphones, and I think they use semaphore.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
they got the Army Corps of Engineers, you know.
And those people in those Conestogas, they were spending the night in those because they were out on location away from everything. So they were living the life.
Well, and honestly, too, Rob, they were a hair's width away from the pioneers that they were portraying, really.
Because these days, they have to reconstruct those wagons.
Yeah.
Back then, they were still in existence.
And nobody knows how to drive oxen like that. But they were, Rob, and you've seen it, they were from you and me to as far as you can go out in the distance.
And widescreen, too, which made it amazing because you'd look back in there and say, these are real people. This is not digital. And to see it on a big screen restored, you probably know this, but in 1930, when that film was done, they shot it with the widescreen lenses.
Yes, sir.
But also the 4x3, which was standard.
Standard, yeah.
And because the theaters had just spent all their money, the theater owners, in converting to talkies, to sound.
Right.
They didn't have money for this new widescreen thing. And so it never got shown in widescreen except the 2 theaters the whole time. And so it was a failure financially. And so it put Duke in those Lone Star B westerns, which I love.
I love them.
And he learned how to act in it.
Yeah, well, he did, and then there was George Hayes in there.
Oh yeah,
before he was Gabby.
Before he was Wendy.
Yeah, exactly. Before he was Wendy. Yeah, I just love those.
I do too.
And you know what? Being a horseman and a rancher myself, I have a deep appreciation for the stunts that they pulled off, that there was no way, no green screen, no anything. When they did a transfer, riding that horse up to a train and reaching over, there's a lot can go wrong.
Well, and Yakima Canutt doubling Duke and also playing in a lot of those Lone Star Westerns. They worked out how to fight.
Oh, yeah. Movies. Well, they developed that fight. And, you know, I worked on a picture years ago, several of them with Neil Summers. And we did a big fight scene on an Italian Western, but we used the things that he had learned from...
being observing.
Observing, exactly.
So many of the legends.
How you come around, you know, that roundhouse, and you snap your head around, you know.
You know, A. Martinez, who's here this week.
He's here.
He told me about John Wayne when he's in this movie, The Cowboys, a classic film.
Yeah.
And he said, John Wayne said, no, you got to fight like this and just put your arm back and then throw it around. He goes, well, I'd get beat up. But he said, I'm not going to argue with John Wayne.
Not going to argue with John Wayne.
And he says, and it works.
And it works. And the camera reads it perfectly, but you have to have trust that you're this far away from the man's nose. And, Yeah,
Roy said Yak got him one time. You know,
man.
Pretty bad, but... They were out there doing stuff, and Roy wasn't really a horseback rider, but he turned into one of the best.
He really did. I've always been impressed with his horsemanship. He looked good on a horse, and I saw a home movie where he was roping calves.
Really?
And it was in an interview, and he said, well, you know, I'm from Ohio. But when I got into Western pictures, I learned how to ride. I'd ridden on the farm, but I knew I'd learn how to ride from these cowboys. And I thought, you know what? If cowboys rope, I'm going to learn how to rope too. And man, he was doing it good.
Well, you grew up in Texas. So when did you start horseback riding?
Well, I grew up a Texas town kid north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I had 60s TV Westerns. I had a Schwinn bicycle. I had a .22 rifle. I had a Daisy Red Ryder BB
Of course
gun.
you did.
And just a little bit out in the country, I had a horse out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I rode I'm going to admit something. I rode my Schwinn bicycle out and leaned it against the fence and whistled my mare up. And I saddled her. And I was a big fan of Paint Your Wagon, so I named her Mariah. And we rode. We had 2 speeds, fast and faster. But, man, I tell you what, I was my hero for riding the same trail.
Yeah. Man, it's an emotional thing, and we are lucky little cowboys to have grown up being able to play cowboys.
You betcha.
And to talk to our cowboy heroes. Isn't that just marvelous?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Now, I remember, and your albums, you must have 10 or 20 albums out there.
Yeah,
too.
about 14, 15 or something like that.
Well,
One of my favorite ones is Riding the Dreamland Range, where we paid tribute to what we grew up with.
That's my favorite, too.
Yeah.
Singing The Searchers.
The Searchers.
What a wonderful song. And now Dale Robertson said you wrote that.
That was a funny night, Rob. What a wonderful night at the Golden Boot Awards. And I met Frankie Lane, holy Moses, and different people like that. But it's a longer story than I can tell. But you asked me to sing Right Away from The Searchers. Yeah. Behind me was the Wayne family. And back behind that on the screen was Duke walking out that door.
Yep. That was a magic night for everybody.
Magic night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to tell you this right quick. Several years ago, I had my entire family. I've got 6 kids, and most of them are grown. And my brother's a writer out of Garland, Texas, Jeff Hampton. And he said, RW, there's a little theater downtown Garland, and they're showing The Searchers on the big screen. Have you ever seen it? And I said, no, I have not. Woo! A theater with a big screen. Oh,
like
my
IMAX
goodness.
because it's VistaVision.
Yes.
Which is, it's not the widescreen.
Yes.
It's giant, so those monuments engulf you as the audience is watching.
Yeah, and see, my youngest son is named Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to tell you why.
Ethan Edwards, man.
And he was sitting beside me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Woo, when Wayne says, let's go home, Debbie. Wow.
Yeah. Very powerful, because you think he's going to kill her.
Yeah.
You know, that's
and he
why
picks her up and goes, let's go home, Debbie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm getting chills now. That's been restored now in 70 millimeters.
70.
So it's going to be like watching an IMAX movie on the big screen. So if it comes around again, I always grab my boy when he was little and his friends and would take him to see the Bud Bedecker double features with Randolph Scott and the Searchers.
Randy.
It's a great experience for them to see it on a big screen.
Absolutely.
Instead of just the superheroes, which is okay for them.
Yeah.
They're Westerns, basically.
Yeah, they are.
Your music. I know you toured with a one-man show and got all kinds of accolades.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Just wonderful stuff. Your voice is incredible. Well,
I've been blessed. I mean, the good Lord gave it to me, and I love to sing, but I love to talk. And
I can tell that.
Well, I love to talk about things I'm passionate about, but I've done some voiceover work and things, and done some picture work. You know, I did some movie work in the 80s.
You were in the Desperados.
Yes.
A couple of those.
Yeah, with Rod Steiger and Hoyt.
Dick Farnsworth.
Dick Farnsworth, and I did a CB, my first one where I did my Taft-Hartley, where I got into SAG, was on a 1985 CBS movie of the week called Wild Horses.
Oh, sure.
It was a Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
But, and it was all this cast, and then Ben Johnson, Dick Farnsworth, Buck Taylor, a bunch of other, Richard Masser, Jack Rader, and all these people, and then RW Hampton as himself. And that was so much fun, you know.
What was that like, that shoot? You know, because Kenny had been a singer, and all of a sudden, because of the Gambler series, became a very popular TV movie Western star.
Well, let me just back up a little bit. In 1979, I was working on a ranch in northern Nevada. Kenny Rogers and his bunch, and I don't know how they choreographed. I mean, I don't know how it all came together, but he did a 90-minute TV special called Kenny Rogers and the American Cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in my 20s. I had an old Ovation guitar, and we talked. They interviewed me. I don't know how they picked me, but we talked, and I shaped a hat for him in a cold stream.
Now, that is one of the classic all-time hats that I've ever seen. Now, mine, on the other hand, is
Yours needs a little work.
How's that? Ow! I'm supposed to wear it while it's wet?
Isn't that
That's
better?
going to be a lot of fun. I don't have to do my shirt this way, too, do I?
And then they had a scene, a nighttime scene, where he and I were sitting on a log around a campfire, all these other cowboys, and I sang Ghost Riders in the Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And he sang an old James Taylor song called Sweet Baby James.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, beautiful. Cashed the check, had a great time. I was a star for part of an evening. And I went back to my $500 a month cowboy job. Well, 6 years later, I get a phone call from Ken Kragen, who was Kenny's manager, Lionel Richie's manager, and, you know, and Travis Tritt and so forth. And he says, RW, we're doing a modern day Western. And when we were talking about it, trying to read the script and figure out how it was going to go, we decided to look at Kenny Rogers and American Cowboy to get some reference. And we said, what if we have a campfire scene like that? Can we get that old kid up there? And so he called me, and I went. I'll never forget, I drove to Amarillo, called a plane to Denver, went to my gate, and down at my gate, sitting there, just shooting the breeze, was Ben Johnson, Dick Farnsworth, and my dear old friend that got me picture work, Dave Cass.
Mm-hmm.
And we flew to Billings, Montana, and then to Sheridan, Wyoming, and unloaded, and that's where we started the movie.
Wow.
And I shared, we did a lot of stuff at Eaton's Guest Ranch there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of those fabulous, neat old 30s-style dude ranches from that era, you know. And so we shot a lot of the horseback stuff.
And that's the early 80s this was happening?
84, I think it came out in 85.
Most of those dude ranches at that time, because we stayed at one, my family,
Right.
one in Livingston.
Livingston,
The
yeah.
63 ranch, a wonderful time. They had us move. We said, we want to do more than just ride around, so we moved a herd of horses.
Yeah, wow.
And spent overnight in this line cabin
You bet.
with rattlesnakes and stuff. But hey, that's my story. This is your story. So all those dude ranches, though, at that time were deserted. Nobody was going out west at the time.
Yeah.
Westerns are back now, but back then you were so lucky.
Very fortunate. And we shot some street scenes and town scenes in Sheridan, Wyoming. And we had a fight scene in the old Mint Saloon there where
They directed that.
Dick Lowry.
Oh,
Dick
sure.
Lowry.
Dick knows
Yes.
where to put the camera, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Dick Lowry and Hunt Lowry and Junie Lowry.
Cassett, yeah.
Yeah. And so anyhow, they put me in a little trailer with Dick Farnsworth and Ben Johnson because you guys are cowboys. The little guy with the headset and the clipboard, you guys are cowboys, we're going to put you over here. And I had an old cheap guitar, and this is a funny thing. I'll tell you this story. I don't know if it'll get on the show or not.
Everything gets on.
All right.
I need everything.
Everything. Okay. So they call me to go do something, be in a scene. And so I come back. I go back to the trailer and I hear this beautiful high tenor voice and guitar. I thought, who the Sam Hill was that? So I open the door and I look to the left and it's Dick Farnsworth.
Singing.
Yes, he's playing an old song, Oh, Make Me a Cowboy Again for a Day. And I'm going in disbelief. And then I look across the trailer and there's a woman that had been the stewardess on our flight. And Dick was ornery, so he's playing, Oh, Make Me a Cowboy Again for a Day. And he goes, she's raptured by my voice. But here's the thing. Sometimes we look back in life and we realized we had a golden moment. I knew at the very time I was living in that golden moment. And boy, it's
Being
precious.
self-aware is so lucky.
Isn't it?
A lot of people, these things just whiz by.
I know,
They
I
don't
know.
embrace them. They look back years later and they go, well, by golly, I was pretty lucky. So what was Ben like?
Ben was Ben. And, well, a man of integrity, a horseman, a Westerner. You know, and I sat there in that trailer, and they treat. Here's the thing, and Buck was there as well.
He got the actor trailer, though, right?
Yes, he got the actor trailer. That's right. But here's the thing, Rob. They treated me as one of their own.
Mm-hmm. They're great guys. They don't make them like that anymore. But here you are, following in their footsteps.
Yes,
so to speak.
Yes, yeah.
And you did another Western called The Tracker.
I did The Tracker,
which I love. Chris Christopherson and Scott Wilson was the bad guy in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, and he was scary.
Yeah. Well, he was a bad guy in Hostiles. That was his last movie. So came almost full circle. Of course, his biggest role was in Cold Blood with Bobby Blake.
Yes.
The Killers.
Yeah.
He was a terrific actor.
And here's the thing. I, as much as I've loved Westerns in the way that they're shot, I would go down, even when I wasn't included in a scene, I would go down, stand behind the camera and watch. And I'd go, whoa, where is this, how are they, It was beautiful. We shot a lot of that around Mesa Verde. In the Four Corners area. I got to tell you a funny story because I was with the outlaw gang that was pursuing. I don't even remember what the plot was, but we were pursuing Chris. Chris was pursuing us, and he was the lead. Well, in the final scene, we run out of the bushes, and they squibbed us. And it was kind of one of those deals. We talked about it, we blocked it, and we went through it, and we did it. And the director said, I'd like to get it one take if we can, because we got to re-squib, everybody change their shirts and so forth. So they had different ones of us running out of the brush, and Chris, he had these big old Walker Colts he'd pull out and go, boom, boom, boom. So we did it. Some of us were supposed to lay dead. Some of us were supposed to writhe in pain. Some of us were supposed to limp off and try to get our guns, so we had it all. And we did it. Cut. And Chris said, what does it look like? And in his voice, and the director said, Chris, looking through the camera, it looks like you're shooting in the air and not at the... He said, well, I don't know what the hell that matters. I was hitting everything I was shooting at.
So did they do a pickup of him with the guns loaded?
Yes, they went ahead and did the pickup.
But you guys were okay.
We were okay. But we did, back then, with SAG and working stunts, they called it hard riding, which is you're riding fast. I did some saddle falls and things. Well, the hard riding we did was stuff we did on the ranch. So we were giggling because we're getting paid
extra.
We're getting paid in a day what we'd make on a month working on a ranch.
That's why Ben moved to L.A.
That's why he moved to L.A. I've heard the story many times about how John Ford passed him the envelope. Have your lawyer look over this.
He just signed it.
He said, I don't need my lawyer to look. $5,000 a week or something like that.
Yep, that's what it was.
But, working stunts, you got your name in the credits. You got residuals. But if they needed to do it again, you got what they called a bump. And so I have to mention, because I loved him so much, my friend Dave Cass. And so he called me up on the phone and said, RW, why don't you come to Santa Fe and read for this little role? He called it an action role. And it'd have 2 or 3 lines and a lot of riding, and we're going to kill you in the end. And I said, hey, man, I'm your man. He said, and they used to call me in, it was funny because I go in and read for something and I'd be looking at their eyes trying to get something. I didn't get that, dude. And we didn't have cell phones, see. So I'd drive from Santa Fe all the way back to the ranch, and the phone on the wall back then would ring, said, RW, can you come in for a call back at 8 o'clock in the morning? I go, oh my goodness, yeah, I'll be there. Drive all the way back down there.
Well, that leads me to a question on my mind here. With 6 kids and you going off like that, how tough is that on you and the family?
Well, I tell you what, like on the tracker, I took my family with them. And it absorbed a lot of what I made.
Because they were younger, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it absorbed
A lot of what I made, but it was worth it to me because my family, means more to me than anything.
I